Welcome back to TLDR's daily briefing for Friday the 25th of July 2025. In today's episode, we cover the continued clashes between Thailand and Cambodia, the Ukrainian president's move to reverse a controversial anti-corruption bill, and why the US has lifted sanctions on Myanmar junta allies. But first, France will recognise Palestine. French President Emmanuel Macron has announced that France will recognise Palestine as a state, a major diplomatic move that will make France the first G7 country to do so. Macron said he would formalise the move at the United Nations in September, but added that the urgency today is to end the war in Gaza and to provide aid to the civilian population. Aid groups have been sounding the alarm that mass starvation is spreading in Gaza as a result of Israel's restrictions on humanitarian aid. Emmanuel Macron confirmed the move to recognise Palestine in response to a letter from the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, who had written to Macron and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman condemning the October 7th attack, advocating for the demilitarisation of Hamas, and committing to reforming the Palestinian Authority's governance. The Palestinian Authority welcomed Macron's announcement and said it reflected France's commitment to international law and its support for the Palestinian people's rights to self-determination. Macron himself said that the move upheld France's historic commitment to a just and lasting peace in the Middle East. The vast majority of countries, more than 140 out of 193 UN member states, recognise the state of Palestine, including most of the Global South, Russia, China, India and Brazil. However, only 11 of the EU's 27 member states do so, and no G7 countries recognise Palestine either. France's move to recognise Palestine, while largely symbolic, will put pressure on other countries, such as the United Kingdom, Canada and others, to follow Macron's lead. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu strongly condemned Macron's announcement, and Netanyahu's defence minister described it as a disgrace and a surrender to terrorism. Similarly, the United States rejected Macron's move and called it reckless. The United States has also announced that it will not be attending the joint Franco-Saudi conference in New York next week, which seeks to chart a roadmap to the recognition of Palestine by other countries. The international community has long pushed for a two-state solution that would see Israel exist alongside an independent state of Palestine, comprising the occupied West Bank and the Gaza Strip, with East Jerusalem as its capital. However, this has looked like a more and more distant project. Last year, the Israeli parliament, or Knesset, voted overwhelmingly for a resolution that opposed the establishment of a Palestinian state, and just this week the Knesset voted, again overwhelmingly, in favour of a non-binding motion that called for Israel to annex the occupied West Bank. Meanwhile, Israel's military offensive in Gaza continues, and hopes for a ceasefire have dimmed after the US and Israel walked out of ceasefire talks in Qatar, accusing Hamas of not acting in good faith, though Hamas expressed keenness to continue negotiations. You're listening to TLDR's daily briefing. If you want more explainers on what's happening in the world, then you should check out TLDR's other channels. Today, we released videos on the Thailand Cambodia border clashes and the latest episode of our self-reflecting podcast, The Editorial. You can find those videos linked in the description or show notes for this episode, or by searching for TLDR on YouTube or Nebula. Moving now to Cambodia and Thailand, where heavy fire has been exchanged for a second day over a disputed stretch of the country's border. Tensions have been high since a Cambodian soldier was killed in May near a disputed border area, and conflict erupted yesterday, escalating rapidly from small arms fire to heavy shelling. So far, at least 16 people, most of them Thai civilians, have died in the exchange of fire, the heaviest fighting between the two neighbours in over a decade. Meanwhile, Thailand has rejected international mediation offers to resolve the conflict, insisting that Cambodia cease hostilities before dialogue. Following offers of mediation from the US, China and Malaysia, the Thai Foreign Ministry spokesperson said, "We don't need third-party mediation yet." Yesterday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy approved a draft bill to restore the independence of key anti-corruption agencies, following mass protests in Ukraine, the largest anti-government protests since Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022, and amid criticism from Ukraine's European allies. The move comes after Zelenskyy passed a new law on Tuesday that brought the country's two key anti-corruption agencies under effective government control. The new law grants the Prosecutor General, a famously political figure who's directly appointed by the President, the authority to issue directives to these agencies and reassign their cases to other prosecutors. Zelenskyy argued that the two agencies in question were ineffective and vulnerable to Russian influence. However, the move was pretty controversial, given that, in practice, the bill dismantles crucial safeguards meant to shield the agencies from political interference, and effectively gives Zelenskyy's office the power to halt investigations with a single phone call. EU officials warned the reforms could jeopardize Ukraine's membership bid, and opposition lawmakers had already begun efforts to repeal the changes. Following this mounting backlash, both at home and abroad, on Thursday, Zelenskyy announced a new draft bill to essentially reverse the previous one and ensure the independence of the anti-corruption agencies. There'll be a full video coming out tomorrow about this whole anti-corruption saga over on the TLDR EU channel, so make sure to check that out. The US has lifted sanctions on several close allies of Myanmar's military rulers, weeks after junta leader Min Aung Hlaing praised Donald Trump and urged relief from economic penalties. The move comes shortly after Min Aung Hlaing sent a letter to Trump requesting a reduction in US tariffs. The letter also commended Trump's strong leadership and appealed for sanctions to be eased, citing shared economic interests. The director of Human Rights Watch called the US's move shocking and its motivation unclear, highlighting that the lifting of sanctions is a major shift in US policy which previously condemned Myanmar's military regime, which is currently implicated in crimes against humanity and genocide. Now, before we wrap things up, here's two more things to look out for in the coming week. First is the joint Franco-Saudi conference in New York next week, which seeks to chart a roadmap to the recognition of Palestine by other countries. The second is the upcoming recall elections in Taiwan on Sunday, which is essentially a mass referendum that could see the KMT party, which holds a slim 62-seat majority coalition, lose nearly 2/3 of its legislators. Anyway, that's all for today's episode, and we'll be back with you on Monday, so make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen. In the meantime, you can check out the latest episode of our podcast, The World Leader Leaderboard, where we discuss which heads of government are doing well and who's doing badly every week. You'll find the link in the podcast description. This was a TLDR news production, hosted by Georgina Finley, written by Rory Taylor and Nadja Lovadinov, and produced by Scarlett Watchorn. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back again on Monday.